Welcome to the Everyday Miracles podcast, where real life stories of hope and inspiration are shared. Every day, miracles are happening all around us, yet we rarely hear anything about them. Why is that? I'm Julie Hedenborg, and I've committed my time and energy to bring these stories to you, including some of my own personal experiences. My hope is that you'll be impacted the same way that I was. Join me in my journey to inspire change in a world that so desperately needs it. Welcome back to Everyday Miracles podcast. I'm Julie, your host, and I am thrilled. I have a wonderful guest for you today. I have my first international guest out of Canada, and a little bit about Wes. I have Wes Harding. He's from Sarnia, Ontario. He is a father, a husband, educator, author. He's an athlete, a very well-established Ironman. He's a motivational speaker. He was at the heart of the Boston Marathon 2013 bombings. His journey of transformation has led him to leave his career as an educator of 20 years and start up Canada's first athletic ride-along organization created for those with disabilities, now called Team Hoyt Canada. Their mission is to enhance the lives of individuals with disabilities through running together. He has a degree in religious studies. He also has a degree in education. I noticed he's an author. I don't know if I listed that, but I have his book, if you're watching. It's called Destined to Run, My Spiritual Journey from Couch Potato to Ironman. And in the book, there's a photo in 2012 of the mayor presenting him with the Mayor's Honor Award for making a difference in the community. And he didn't even tell me that, so that speaks to his humility. So this is more than macros and miles. It is a beautiful, like I said on the cover, a spiritual journey. And this is going to inspire you, whether you want to run, whether you want to, whatever goal you have. So Wes has a beautiful message for you today, and it couldn't come at a better time. So welcome, Wes. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for having me this morning. Looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yes. Where would you like to start?
Well, I'll just introduce myself first, and to your listeners there. I'm Wes Harding, and as Julie said, I'm from Sarnia, Ontario, Canada, that is. And we're about an hour probably east of Detroit, Michigan, that is. So we're a border city. We border with a small city called Port Huron, Michigan. So we have the International Bridge right across the road, basically, from us, actually, to the U.S. So I certainly have that connection with our American listeners, because I maybe tend to go over to cross-border shop sometimes over there. You get some great stuff over there. But well, I have 4 daughters too as well, and you're wondering why I have no hair. That's the reason why, actually. My daughters are all in their 20s now. One of them is married, and it's been an exciting journey with them. And as Julie said, I am an educator. I was a school principal for over 20 years, and then something happened in 2013 in the heart of Boston. And as Julie mentioned, there was the Boston Marathon bombings as I was running across. And my family was in the bleacher seats right across from the very first bomb that had went off. But it's certainly a journey, and I'm going to share a little bit about that this morning too as well. And what you're going to hear today is something hopefully to encourage each one that's listening. Really to live the dream. You know, so often we hear individuals that say, you know, live the dream, you know, the future's bright, but so often we look at ourselves and our surroundings and we think, there's no way I can live my dream. And hopefully through this presentation, yes, you can. And that's the whole message of today, is that yes, you can. Nothing's impossible. I do know that through this past 12 years, it hasn't been easy. But I do know that it's been the most exciting part of my life, actually. And you know, it's like climbing a mountain. There are many difficult parts to get to the top, but once you get to the top, boy, let me tell you, the view is beautiful. So this presentation you're going to hear this morning, I go to schools, I go to organizations, and just to encourage others that yes, you can. You can take that first step and live that dream that you may have. I always share right at the very, very beginning, actually, there are 3 important takeaways in this presentation. Number 1 is that you are special. God has created you by his very own hands and in his image, and that God loves you very much. And so you are special. And so often we hear that, no, I'm not special. In fact, I was reading in an article in Psychology Today magazine that it stated that you're not special. You're one of 7 billion people. There is nothing special about you. You're not a LeBron James, or in Canada here, we have our Wayne Gretzky, actually. It's just you. And there's nothing special about you. But there is. You know, it's interesting, the fact that God saw you before time and he created you. And we're going to be looking at one of the verses in Jeremiah 29:11, actually, that he has a future and a hope for you. But so often it gets muddled down, and looking around at our surroundings, as we look horizontal, it looks terrible and depressing. But God's saying, you know, look up, actually, because I do have a plan for you. The second takeaway is, yes, you can. Yes, you can what? Yes, you can do anything that you want to do. You know, so often I hear my students say, I can't do that, whether it be a math problem or, you know, running 100 meters. I can't do that. Yes, you can. You can do anything you want. You know, so often we hear that's impossible. And I love it when people say that's impossible, because what I do is I spell and have them spell impossible. I am possible. Yeah, you are possible. It's not possible, impossible. It's I am possible. And yes, you can. And thirdly, make a difference. You know, life is short. As I was just sharing about the Boston Marathon bombings, you know, as I crossed that finishing line, and you know, I went down, you know, several hundred meters, and then seeing the excitement turn into, wow, you talk about death, and you talk about the, you know, the senses. I can still smell, I can still taste, I can still hear, I can still, you know, it stays in you. And as I turned around to see the horror of the horrors happening, you know, I thought to myself, life is short. You don't know if that next breath you take will be your last. And I looked at, you know, individuals around, and it was amazing. And what you do not hear at the Boston Marathon, actually in 2013, is that the race was stopped when those 2 bombs went off. I had already crossed the finishing line. But you know, the amazing thing is that there were thousands of runners who not only stopped the race, but they continued running. Where did they ran to? They ran to Massachusetts General Hospital to give blood. And I thought to myself, wow, that doesn't make the news. You know, I thought, you know, they knew, as the runners had heard from the police and the bystanders, you know, the race is over, there've been 2 bombs went off, actually. They ran to the hospital to give blood, and I thought, wow, those are the small things that make a difference. And I thought to myself, yeah, they're doing life, and they're doing it right, actually. So those three things, that you are special, yes, you can, and make a difference, is going to be kind of resounding through this presentation. You know, for me, it really started in 2008. I was 40 years old, and as an educator, I had actually weighed almost 230 pounds, and I'd become very selfish and self-centered. And when I had turned 40 years old, it was on December 5th. That was just last week there. And December 5th, you know, I ran downstairs and I realized that my life was half over. You know, God says that, you know, this life will last for 70 years, which is 70 years approximately on average. And I looked in the mirror and I thought, I feel awful. I look awful. And here God has told me that he has a dream, a plan in the future. You see, when I come home every night, you know, after teaching all day, I would lock myself in a room and I play video games. And I would eat potato chips and drink pop. In fact, I used to drink a case of Coke every 2 days. And that was just me. And along with that came the TV. It became my best friends. You know, I didn't want to see anybody. And so I would isolate myself and just focus on me. And really, I hated it because I wasn't doing life. And as I looked in the mirror, I thought to myself, wow, I look awful. I feel awful. And as I looked in that weigh scale, you know, it wasn't going down. It was continuing going up. And I thought, is this what I want for the next 40 years of my life? As I'm standing at the top, and the view wasn't pretty from that angle. And I thought to myself, well, what is my dream? You know, as an educator, I always say to my students on graduation night, to my 7th, 8th, my grade 8 students, you know, to live the dream, the future is bright. And I thought to myself that very day, I thought, you hypocrite. You're telling people to live their dream, but you're not living yours that God has placed within your heart. So I had one of those moments where God said, well, what is your dream? And I thought, yeah, what is my dream? As I looked in the mirror, I thought, my dream is to run the Boston Marathon. That was, in fact, it really started when I was 8 years old. I was in our family room, and I was watching TV, and there was some sort of road race that was going on. It really intrigued me, actually, because it was, first of all, it was on TV, and second of all, you had all these Africans running in it, and all the white people were chasing after the Africans, and I couldn't figure out why in the world that was chasing after them. And then they got to this part in the race called Heartbreak Hill, and I thought, Heartbreak Hill, what kind of a dumb name for a hill that is that? Then I realized as I was watching it, that's the point in the race where runners hit the wall at the 32-kilometer mark. They get to the top and they quit. And as the marathon is 42 kilometers and Heartbreak Hill is put at 32, they give up. And I think to myself, well, you get to the top of Heartbreak Hill, you see a city called Boston. And I thought, why would they give up so early? They're so close to it. And as I watched the thousands of runners give up, I thought, oh, they're so close to, then I see these runners running down the last 100, meters, and they're, smiling and arms waving in front of over 1 million spectators. And as an 8-year-old, I said, that's what I want to do. I want to run the Boston Marathon. And I thought to myself, that's what I'm going to do. God has promised me that I can, live my dreams. He has a dream for me. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to do it, actually. So what did I do? Actually, I thought to myself, you know what? I am going to wait until after Christmas to get my first pair of running shoes. I didn't even own a pair of running shoes, actually. But I had determined in my heart that, yeah, I'm going to live my dream. I'm going to run the Boston Marathon. And but the timing's not right, because, I used to, believe it or not, eat one whole pie for dessert every single night. And I'd become very selfish. If my daughters wanted a pie or a piece of pie, I would tell my wife to bake a second pie, because they weren't going to have my full pie, actually. And if my wife didn't bake a pie, I would go to our local grocery store and buy my favorite apple all the time, actually. And I would go and buy the apple and eat it every single night. And I thought to myself, yeah, I'm gonna run it, but I can't do it right now because it's Christmas time. You get all the baked goods, the turkey dinners, and I love to eat, actually. This is the bad timing. You see, in life, there is never a good time to start your dream. Never. The time to start is today. But, I rationalized it inside myself, and us Canadians, the biggest shopping day is not Black Friday, it's Boxing Day, which is the day after Christmas. And so I thought, I'm going to get a good deal on shoes on Boxing Day. And besides, I get to all eat for the next 2 weeks, actually, anything I want, and then I'll go start living out my dream. Well, you know what? I was determined on December 26th, and that day came, actually, I'm going to buy my first pair of running shoes. Well, it's like Black Friday here in Canada, Boxing Day. And so I'm lining up with thousands of other people at our mall, and the doors are all locked. And I thought, today I'm going to start living my dream. And sure enough, the security guards opened the doors, and I actually couldn't believe it. Everyone was running. I didn't think Canada had so many runners in my life. They were running to this door, to that store, and I thought, hey, this is pretty good. As I'm running to my local shoe store, actually, within the mall, and sure enough, I walk into the shoe store there, and I didn't have a clue what to look for, actually. It was just a myriad of shoes on the wall, and just that I saw it was a shoe with a check mark. And I thought, as a school teacher, a check mark's a good thing, so it must be a good shoe. And just then the sales representative came over to me, and it caught my attention because this sales representative was an inspirational marathon coach in our community. And I thought to myself, wow, what timing. And she came over and she said, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm looking for, a good pair of running shoes. And she didn't say anything. And she said, well, what do you want to do with them? And I thought, duh, what do you want to do with running shoes? Then I thought, well, I have to give it to her because, there's some walking shoes, some hiking shoes. And I thought to myself, well, this is my moment to announce my dream of running the Boston Marathon. So I looked at her and I said, well, I'm going to need a good pair of running shoes because I'm going to run a marathon. And she just looked at me with a deadpan face. And I thought to myself, well, here's my time. And I turned and I looked at her and said, well, I'm just not going to run any marathon. I'm going to run the Boston Marathon. And she looked at me from tip to toe and she said to me, you, my friend, will never run a marathon. You might want to buy your shoes at the store across the road. And she turned her back to me and walked away to serve another customer. And I looked at me and I thought, she's right. I'm never going to run the marathon. Who am I kidding? And on that very spot, I looked down and my dream died that day. And I went home and I had a pity party for myself. I went back to doing what I normally did best, and that's watching TV, playing computer games, drinking my pop and chips, and eating that whole pie again. And I thought to myself, I'll never run a marathon. You know, a marathon is 42 kilometers. You know, the only time I ran is between the fridge and from the couch to the fridge and back during commercial break. That's all I did for running, actually. And I thought, no, I'm never going to live my dream. You know, yeah, God may have dreams for somebody else, but it's not for me because I'll never reach that to the Boston Marathon. You see, to reach the Boston Marathon, it's the only marathon in the world you have to qualify for. That means you got to run another marathon before then, and it's got to be within the strict qualifications that Boston Athletic Association has put out for time before you can even get in. You know, you run marathons, great. There's no big deal to that, actually, because there are millions of people. But to get to Boston, they're only going to take the world's top 1% of runners. And I thought to myself, you know, I'm never going to do that. I'm never even going to be able to run a marathon, let alone get to Boston to qualify, taking the top runners in the world. And, you know, so that during that last week of that year, actually in 2008, it was just a dark days. And in my depression, all I heard was, you'll never run a marathon. You know, and as good church going folks, actually, it was the last Sunday of the year. And you know, my daughters are lining up on Sunday morning. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to church. You know, I already know what the pastor's going to talk about. I'm no prophet. But I already know the last Sunday is always, you know, New Year's resolutions, the future's bright, and, you know, to live that dream. And I just didn't want to hear it. I've already been told that my dream will never happen. And so I thought to myself, no, I'm not going. And my daughters looked at me and said, Dad, we always go to church together. And I thought, you know, they're right. What kind of example am I setting as a father? You know, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go. But I'm just like my students too as well. You can make me go, but you can't make me listen. Oh, I can tune people out pretty good. You know, as I said, I have 4 daughters. I have to tune them out sometimes. And I thought, you know what? I can go and I'm just going to tune right out, actually. And we can go for the hour service and come home and that's it. And yeah, it's funny, as I walked in, I into our auditorium, I grabbed the program there, Bolton, and I realized, you know what? I'm right. And I sat down and I tuned out the pastor right out. I didn't hear a word he said, actually. And all I heard in my head was, you'll never run a marathon. Then all of a sudden, the lights went dim in the auditorium. I thought, hey, movie time. That's what I do best. I do movie marathons. You know, and as the lights went dim, then I saw it. You see, I'm a visual learner. And as the pastor and the speaker put on this video, it was a 3-minute video that changed my life. And as I watched it, tears came to my eyes. It was one of those God-defining moments as I saw a father and a son doing life together, and they're doing some sort of triathlon. And as I watched them do the impossible, God got a hold of my life, actually. You know, who were those 2 people? Well, their names were Dick and Rick Hoyt. Dick is the father. Rick is the son. And Rick sits in a wheelchair, and I had no idea. And obviously, as I saw the picture of a father and son standing together with the son in the wheelchair, something grabbed a hold of me. And I thought to myself, who are these 2 individuals that I'm watching? As I realized that in 1962, Dick and Judy Hoyt had a son. In fact, his birth was a tragic birth, and that the umbilical cord got tangled around Rick's neck, and that deprived him of oxygen for several moments. And as he was being born, the doctors immediately knew there was something wrong with him, something drastically wrong. And so they took him away, and after several tests, they were able to determine as they came back to the Hoyts that your son has brain paralysis. We call that cerebral palsy today, but brain paralysis due to the lack of oxygen. And it's affected the part of brain that deals with mobility. So as the experts and the doctors looked at both Dick and his wife, Judy, and they announced to them, your son has brain paralysis that's affected the part of the brain, which means that deals with mobility, which means he'll be a quadriplegic. He'll never be able to move in this lifetime. From the neck down, he'll be paralyzed. And has an added bonus, it's affected the part of the brain that deals with speech. So he will be nonverbal for the rest of his life. He'll never be able to say a word. And has an added bonus. Your son will be spastic. You ever get these muscle spasms? Sometimes they're very painful in your arms and they're tightening up so much, or maybe your leg. Rick will have that for the rest of his life. And so the doctors and the experts looked at both Dick and his wife, Judy, and said, your son is nothing more than a vegetable. The best thing you can do for your son is put him in an institution, lock the door, throw away the keys, and go on with your life, because you'll never, ever amount to anything in the society. Dick and his wife, Judy, had a choice to make that day. Were they going to listen to the voices of the experts and the doctors telling them to put their son in an institution? Or were they going to follow after their own hearts? And Dick looked at the doctors and said, no, we're going to take our son home and raise him like any other family would raise your son. And that's what they did, contrary to the wise words of those doctors and pediatricians. And the amazing thing is, as I continue to watch his family, Dick and Judy did something remarkable, is that whenever they went anywhere, they brought their son with them. Oh, he couldn't do anything like most of all the other family sons couldn't do. But if they went swimming, Rick went swimming too. If they went hiking, Rick went hiking with them. And they had two other sons, Dick and Judy, actually. And being in Boston, those boys love to play hockey. In fact, street hockey, actually. Here in Canada, national sport hockey, actually. But Boston, oh my goodness, with those Boston Bruins. And then anytime the two other brothers would go and play hockey with the neighborhood boys, they would always bring their brother Rick with them. You see, they would put him in a wheelchair and they would duct tape a hockey stick to the chair. And Rick's favorite position? Goalie. Nobody could score on Rick, actually, in the neighborhood. But Rick was always being included. And the amazing thing is, in 1972, something that changed your life and my life and every single life in this world happened. In 1972, computers were being developed. And we know we have computers integrated in our society today, but in 1972, computers didn't really exist at all. And some engineers from a university in Boston, Massachusetts, came to the Hoyts and said, we believe your son is intelligent. We believe we can build a communication device that will allow your son to communicate. That machine was going to cost the Hoyts $5,000. Now, $5,000 in 1972 was a lot of money. You could buy a brand new car with $5,000. But the Hoyts, as Dick and Judy said, that, we got to try. We got to give our son an opportunity to try here. Because, his mother, Judy, she was just a saint. She spent her time, teaching Rick how to read. And it's just like Helen Keller and Annie Sullivan, the teacher, with sandpaper and water. And so those engineers saw what Judy had put into Rick and said, we're going to build this communication device and we're going to call it the Hope Machine. Because not only will give your son, Rick, hope, but it will give thousands of people around the world who are like Rick the opportunity to communicate. So they went away, and sure enough, after several weeks, the engineers came back and to the Hoyt's home, and it was amazing because it was a big thing actually. And they set up this great big TV screen in front of Rick actually. It was one of those great big heavy ones actually. We have beautiful LCD and LED TVs now. Back then it was the CRT ones actually, big heavy ones, and they did something remarkable. They put a sensor pad at the side of Rick's head, and on the computer screen were the letters of the alphabet. And as the cursor is blinking, when Rick would tap the sensor, the cursor would move from letter to letter to letter. And when it stopped, a letter would be pulled out and put into a sentence. And so the press was all around. They're all eagerly waiting to see, and the engineers were, especially mom and dad, because what was Rick's first words going to be? 10 years old. Dick thought for sure it's going to be dad. And mom, no way, it's going to be mama. And the brothers, they were adamant it was going to be their name. You know what street hockey they play together? And so they all watched in anticipation of what were Rick's first words. And sure enough, to the amazement, Rick started tapping, and the letter G was pulled out. And their eyes were wide open as he continued to tap. The letter O was pulled out. And then B. And as he continued tapping, R pulled out. And frowns started going around as they looked at one another, thinking, what was Rick trying to tap? As the letter U was pulled down. And Rick continued to tap, and the letter I was pulled down. And to their amazement, they thought, Rick can't talk. And as Dick said, listen, he's just talking gibberish. As the letter N was pulled down. And all of a sudden, the brothers' eyes lit up and said, Dad, do you know what Rick's trying to say? As the letter S was pulled down, he's saying, go Bruins. You see, the Boston Bruins were playing some Canadian team called Montreal Canadiens, the Stanley Cup Finals, and Rick, being an avid hockey fan, was saying, go Bruins, his very first words, actually. And to the amazement, the excitement was that now they had the communication device that allowed their son to communicate. It was the best day of their life. And sure enough, Rick's eyes just lit up because now he could communicate to those he loved around him, to others. During the 70s, inclusion was never a word. It never happened. You see, back in those times, anybody with a disability like that was put in an institution and isolated from our society. And then they were taught within their small little groups. But inclusion started to happen. And Judy, the mother, was a pioneer in that in Massachusetts. And she got her son included into the public school system, the very first individual for her son to go in, because you know what? He was intelligent, and the public schools only allowed him in there because he had a communication device that allowed him to talk. But that opened the door for Rick to go to school in the mid-70s, actually. And Rick could feel like everyone else. And then in 1977, something happened when Rick was in high school. A lacrosse player got injured in a car accident, terribly injured, that left him paralyzed from the neck down, just like Rick. And he was an all-American lacrosse player. And the high school decided to do something to raise money for some medical expenses that the student had incurred because of his paralysis. And they were going to do a 5-mile benefit run. And Rick saw that, and he went home and he typed on his communication device, Dad, I want to run in that 5-mile benefit because I want to tell my friend that life goes on after having a disability. Dick looked at his son and said, son, you're paralyzed. You can't run in that road race. Not. Dick said, son, you are special. You can do anything that you want to do. We'll do it together. So father and son lined up together with hundreds of other people, and they found this rickety old wheelchair. And Dick wasn't a runner. Dick was 40 years old, never ran a day in his life. Now he's going to push his son in a 5-mile benefit run. In fact, the organizers of the event gave them a bib number. All runners have bib numbers to identify them in the road race. And they gave Rick and Dick the number 00 because that was the probability of them finishing the road race. They thought they would go to the corner and turn around and that would be all it. But Dick said they ran that road race and they ran the full 5 miles and they came second to last, but they didn't come last. And as they were driving home that night, Rick had typed on his communication device, "Dad, when I'm running with you, it feels like my disability disappears." And his dad knew he had made a connection with his son. Wasn't a very short time later, actually, Rick typed on his communication device, "Dad, I have another dream." And Dick said, "What's your dream, son?" He said, Dad, I want to do a marathon." Dick didn't know what a marathon is. He didn't have Google back then. They just had encyclopedias, actually, those great big heavy dead weights. Actually, he looked up, Dick did, found it was 26.2 miles, or us Canadian folks, it's 42.2 kilometers, but 26.2 miles is a long ways to go. And Dick looked at his son and said, "Son, you're paralyzed. You can't run in a road race." "Not." He said, "Son, you're special. You can do anything that you want to do. We'll do it together." So father and son lined up with thousands of other people and they ran the road race together, that 26.2 miles. You know, it was an amazing moment. And sure enough, as Rick got home, Dick said he could see the wheels moving in Rick's mind, actually. And sure enough, he typed on his communication device, Dad, I have one more dream. I love dreams." And Dick said, "Son, what's your dream?" He said, Dad, I want to do an Ironman competition." Now, I don't know if you know what an Ironman is. It's a tri-sport to swim, bike, and a run. So you're going to swim 2.8 miles, or 3.8 kilometers, that is. And then you're going to bike 112 miles, and then you're going to run 26.2 miles. Canadian terms, 3.8 kilometers, and you're going to bike 180 kilometers, and then run your 42 kilometers for a grand total of 226 kilometers, or 140.6 miles. And Dick looked at his son and said, "Son, you're special. You can do anything that you want to do. We'll do it together." So father and son lined up together in Kona, Hawaii, the world's toughest endurance race, along with the top world. And here, as I watched the video in this church service, a father and a son doing Kona Ironman together. As I watched that video, God got a hold of my heart, and I saw Rick being towed in a boat. And sure enough, the father's coming out, carrying his son out of the water, just as they swam 3.8 kilometers. And sure enough, he's putting him in this bike, and tears started welling up. And then I saw them get on that bike, and they're going to go for that, 112-mile bike ride together through Kona, Hawaii. You want to talk about the elements, the heat, through the lava fields, through the hills. And as I watched the camera pan on Rick smiling, laughing, he's living his dream, and he's having the grand time of his life as his father behind him. And sure enough, they get off the bike and they get on the run, and they put the running shoes on, and they have this special running chair for Rick, and they put him in. They're going to do the 26.2 miles now together, actually. And as that video shows, here's that father and son coming across the finishing line, arms up together, actually. And that video concluded, and I thought to myself, wow. Here's an individual who's a quadriplegic with cerebral palsy, brain paralysis, who's nonverbal, who's spastic, and he's lived his dream of doing an Ironman, and tears welled up as I watched that 3-minute video. It's on YouTube, and if your listeners ever get an opportunity, it's an amazing 3 minutes, and I can tell you want to have tissues around because it's a tearjerker. And God got a hold of my heart because, you see, I'm a visual. A lot of people do a lot of talking. And I thought to myself, you know what? I've seen it now. And I said, oh, God, forgive me, because I've got 2 good arms and I've got 2 good legs. And here I am having a pity party for myself. No, I'm going to get back out there. And I heard that God's small, still voice said, we'll do it together. A father and son doing life together. And sure enough, I went back in that shoe store, and it didn't matter if that shoe store lady was there or not. But you know what? I knew for a fact that I could do it. You know, Henry Ford once said, if you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right. So you tell me about your dream. At that moment, my perspective changed, because before I knew I couldn't because I said I couldn't. But now, after seeing it from my very own eyes, I knew Henry Ford was right. If I think I can do it. And so I went back in, and that shoe store lady wasn't there, and didn't matter anyway. So I bought my first pair of shoes, and it was one with the check mark. And I thought, it's got to be a good pair of shoes. And here on that day, in Sarnia, Ontario, Canada, snowstorm, and I was determined within my own heart that I'm going to run under the cover of darkness, because I was so embarrassed for anyone to see me in my community, let alone my student, because that was like a Weebles Wobbles that didn't fall over, and 230 pounds. And sure enough, the snowstorm came, and it shut down everything in our community. There wasn't a person out. 8 o'clock p.m. arrived, and it was black, and the wind was howling, the snow was a foot deep. And I thought to myself, it's the perfect times now. You see, it's never a perfect time to start your dream. The time is to start today. It will always be your hardest step, but it will be your greatest step. And I put on my great big gray wool jogging shoes or pants, and he put on my little Nike shoes there actually, and got my big winter coat. My daughter said, Dad, you're not going out in this tonight? And I said, yes, I am. They said, well, Dad, we're going to leave the light on just in case you go to the corner and turn around and come back again. But I knew I wasn't going to go to the corner and back. I'm going to go for a run. And I did. I ran a full 5 kilometers that night. Never ran that far in my life. And the amazing thing is, as I ran, all I heard was, you'll never run a marathon. All I saw was, yes, you can. And you know, as I ran down, as I looked in the footprints, I thought, you know, in the snow, I thought, this is going to be a night of 1,000 nights and a night of 1,000 steps to come too, because I'm not going to end there. And it was almost, as I ran by the trees and they had the freezing rain on, I could hear them clapping. It was almost as the Lord himself was clapping as I ran the 5 kilometers that night. It just encouraged me. And as I ran in, my daughters were waiting there with snow all over me too as well. And my daughter said, Dad, so is this it? You're all done running now? And I had no time for them because I had an appointment downstairs actually with my weigh scale. And so I jumped onto the weigh scale, and to my horror of horrors, I didn't even lose 1 pound. You see, I was hoping to lose all my weight in one night. But that didn't even happen. I didn't even lose 1 pound, actually. And I thought to myself, well, this is going to be the first night of 1,000 nights to come. And, you know, I love what Walt Disney said. He said, all our dreams can come possible if you have the courage to pursue them. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to pursue this. And so the next night came, and the next night came. And, you know, after 3 solid months, I never lost 1 pound. And let me tell you, those were dark, depressing days. I thought, was I ever going to lose any weight whatsoever? And then it happened. After 3 solid months, I lost my very first pound. It was on March break. You know, you talk about celebrating achievements. This was a great achievement. I lost my first pound after how many miles of running actually, but I continued to do it. It was hard work, and it was so much easier, especially if you've ever been through a Canadian winter, just to sit the Canadian winters at home watching TV, because who wants to go to minus 15, minus 20 degrees actually run? But I was determined I was going to do it actually. And the amazing thing is I lost my first pound, and over the next 3 months, I had lost 80 pounds. I went from a size 38 pants to a size 28 pants. And the great thing is I could buy my pants now in the kids department and pay no tax in Ontario, Canada, actually. And I was excited. I was excited for the fact that, hey, you know, my life had changed. And I hadn't even run a marathon, but I ran my very first road race. And I didn't come first and I didn't come last, but it was the greatest race of my life as I was able to get out. And I thought to myself, I'm going to do this. I am going to do this. To get to a marathon, it takes baby steps. You're just not going to go out one day and decide to run a marathon. It takes a lot of training. And after a year, I determined I'm going to run my very first marathon. And it was awesome. It was an absolutely fantastic day. I'm lining up in Toronto, Ontario, one of our large cities in Ontario, Canada. And the amazing thing is there was thousands of runners. And I thought, today's the day I'm going to run a marathon, but not only run a marathon, I'm going to qualify for the Boston Marathon. That was in 2009 in the fall, and it was great. I lined up and I started running, and let me tell you, I hit the wall at 32 kilometers, usually between 18 and 20 miles. You hit the wall. It's not a physical wall. It's a wall that it's an emotional wall. It's literally a wall that depletes all your resources. And now, you have nothing to run but your heart. And you still got, for us Canadians, another 10 kilometers to go. And those are tough 10 kilometers. And I continued to walk, run, and as I crossed the finishing line, I thought to myself, oh, I am 30 minutes slower than what I need to be for the Boston Marathon. And in that moment, my heart just died. And I thought to myself, what are you having a pity party for? You just run your first marathon. That shoe store lady said you would never run a marathon. It was the greatest day of my life. You see, it's all about perspective. As I look at my dreams never happen in a day. It's going to take a long time. And one of those character traits is perseverance. It takes a lot. And when you do reach it, you know it's going to be a great time. We have an astronaut in our community. His name is Chris Hadfield. And he was the commander-in-chief of the International Space Station way up. And the great thing is, he said, always aim for the moon and pick up a few stars along the way. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick up a few stars as I try to reach the Boston Marathon. And that first one with the Toronto Scotiabank Marathon, I finished it slow. Mind you, I didn't meet the qualifications. But you know what? Even if I missed the moon, he says, this astronaut, you're going to land in the stars. And I thought, yeah, very few people have run a marathon. I've just run my first one. And so that just meant 6 more months of winter training in Canada. And I was born on the wrong continent because I hate winters. I'm a Canadian. I hate winters, actually. I'd much rather be in California, Hawaii, or something, actually, or even some of the southern states, actually. But, it just meant 6 more months. And we live right on one of the great lakes here in Sarnia called Lake Huron. And you get those north winds coming off it. Oh, my goodness. You can drop the temperature down to -30 in a hurry with the wind chill. And so that just meant 6 more months training along the lake of Lake Huron, actually. And sure enough, I enrolled in another marathon. That was in our capital city in Ottawa. I was pretty excited about it because I was pretty confident that I was going to, qualify for the Boston Marathon. It was going to be my second marathon. So I lined up and I was told that the Prime Minister of Canada was going to be just outside his home, because we're going to run right by his home, actually, and make sure you wave and, even give a word to the Prime Minister of Canada, actually. And I thought, this is great. I'm going to do that, actually. And sure enough, I started running, and then I got to, mile 18, realizing, hey, I missed the Prime Minister of Canada. I was so in the zone, they call it, so focused. I missed him. He was back a couple miles, and I didn't even notice him. He could have been waving and cheering. I didn't even see him. I thought, oh, but this was my moment. I was so focused in, actually, and I'm running and running and running. And I thought, I'm going to do it. As I crossed that finishing line, I looked up, and I was 10 minutes slower than what I needed to qualify for Boston. That just meant 6 more months of training. That's all that meant. But I'd run my second marathon. And so the great thing is we had another marathon in Niagara Falls, Ontario, borders with Niagara Falls, Buffalo, and Buffalo, New York. And So I thought, I'm going to qualify. I just had 6 solid months now. This is my 3rd marathon. I'm going to do it. I felt good. I was really encouraged, actually. And so I put my running shoes. We started in Buffalo, New York, and across that international bridge, run into, Niagara Falls there in Canada. And it was the greatest race of my life. I was running, and I looked up to the clock as I crossed the finishing line, and I was 90 seconds slower than what I needed to be. And oh my goodness, I thought, will I ever reach this dream? I've been struggling for, a couple of years now. And I thought, well, you know what that means? Just means 6 more months of winter training. That's all that means now. And so during those 6 months, really prepare me, because in the spring there's another marathon in Waterloo. You talk about traveling. Oh my goodness, you really get to see the countryside. And in Waterloo, Ontario, there's a marathon. That was a hilly marathon, and they're saying, it was, possibility of, being a good marathon. So I lined up, and let me tell you, it was the crappiest of days. It was pouring rain. It was cold. And I had actually injured myself, and I looked at my wife, just in moments before the race, and I said, I don't think I can do this. I said, I'm just not feeling great today. And she looked at me and said, yes, you can. You can do anything you want. And I thought, Henry Ford's right again. If you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right. I can do this. I can do this. It was a smaller road race, so we haven't got the thousands of people to contend with, and you're kind of in the Mennonite country, so you're going to see these individuals riding on their horses, and it's going to be some beautiful scenery. And I thought, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do. So I started running, and it was beautiful, running through the countryside. We're not running through, the heart of a city, a large city, and it was beautiful. And then at kilometer 41 or mile 25, actually, I looked over. My family usually comes with me to the races, actually, and it's pouring rain. I looked over, and they've been really faithful to be, right at the finishing line, cheering me on. And I looked over at mile 25, and I saw them sitting in the car. And I thought, oh, they're not even going to see me finish. I must have been so slow, actually, that they've been waiting down the finishing line. And the next thing you know, I see them getting out of the vehicle, and they're running with me, and I'm just running to the finishing line. And I crossed the finishing line up, and I looked at the clock, and I'm 10 minutes faster than what I needed to be for Boston. I had qualified for the Boston Marathon in 2011. It was the greatest day of my life. The Boston Marathon ranks you. You get a bib number according to your ranking and your speed of your qualification time. Out of the 32,000 runners, I was qualified at just over 6,000 as my bib number. So it was about the 6,000 fastest runner in the world at that time for the Boston Marathon. And I thought, wow, just a few short years ago, I couldn't even run a kilometer, actually. I didn't know what a pair of running shoes. It was the greatest day of my life. And I went home, and I said to my wife, wow, I have another dream. And she said, well, what's that? And I said, I want to run with Team Hoyt. I want to run with that father and son, because you see, they've run the Boston Marathon for over 25 times together. They were icons in the city of Boston. They've done over 1,000 races. And I've heard that they put together a team of 20 runners from around the world to represent them in the Boston Marathon. As a Canadian, I didn't think I could even be chosen. So, sometimes I'm very bold and stubborn. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to call them. And so what I do, I picked up the phone, and I called Boston, Massachusetts, and I called Team Hoyt, and I got this wonderful gal on the phone, actually, the office manager of Team Hoyt. Her name was Kathy, and I said, I'm Wes Harding from, Sarnia, Ontario, Canada, and I want to run with Team Hoyt. And she didn't share the same enthusiasm, because she said, you along with 10,000 other runners. And I thought, yeah. She said, this is what you're going to do, though. You're going to write an essay and submit it to a law firm in San Diego, California. And I thought, wow, what am I going to write? And I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to write about my story that God has given to me, the struggles and, getting over the hurdles of trying to get to the Boston Marathon. And sure enough, I had diarrhea of the mouth, and I started writing, actually, and I submitted it off, and I thought to myself, oh, will I ever hear back? Because oftentimes when I write these, I never hear back again. And within a couple weeks, I'm at a university in Windsor, and I get a call, and it's from Dick Hoyt, and he called me and said, Wes, congratulations, you've been chosen one of 20 people to run with us in the 2012 Boston Marathon. And my heart just jumped. I mean, could life get any better? You're gonna run with these icons, my heroes. My hero is the individual sitting in the chair that's a quadriplegic, nonverbal, spastic, and that father having the heart and the body to push his son. I'm gonna get to meet for the very first time, because you see, I didn't think they really existed. I just saw them on YouTube, and I thought, did they really exist, these individuals? And sure enough, I got to the Boston Marathon, and who I saw first was Dick and Rick Hoyt. And let me tell you, I touched their warm bodies, and they do exist, and they are very humble and sincere. And we gathered around for photos, and I looked at Rick, and I said, Rick, thank you. Thank you for showing me that yes, I can, that anything is possible. It may take a lot of hard work, and Walt Disney was right, and Henry Ford's right, and Chris Hadfield's right, or Astro. Dreams do come true. And as I stood there, and as I lined up on the Boston Marathon, it was absolutely an amazing moment. Meeting runners from all around the world. And just 4 years ago, I'm eating bags and bags of potato chips, doing movie marathons, and drinking a case of pop every 2 days. And here I am, I've lost 80 pounds, and I'm going to run the greatest race of my life. And in 2012, it was the hottest Boston Marathon ever. And as the temperature sort of soared to about 93, 94 degrees, it was hot. I was hoping to do a really fast time, maybe around 3 hours for a marathon. And let me tell you, the heat, and just the heat coming from the asphalt. I mean, oh my goodness gracious. But it was the greatest day of my life, because as I had the Team Hoyt logo right on my shirt, all I heard was, go Team Hoyt, go Team Hoyt. Had the Canadian flag, go Team Canada, go Team Hoyt. And over 1 million spectators. And I recall back at 8 years old, there's that dream, and now today I'm living it. I get to Heartbreak Hill, and I thought, there's the finishing line, 10 kilometers, and I hit the wall all right. But it didn't matter, because I'm going to run with my heart. And as I looked at both Dick and Rick and watching them do life together, I thought, they've got it right. They're making a difference. And there are thousands of people yelling, go Team Hoyt, yes you can. And I crossed that finishing line. It was the greatest day of my life. As I crossed that finishing line, Dick said to me, don't quit dreaming, don't quit dreaming. And I thought, hey, you know what? If Rick can do an Ironman, I can do an Ironman. I've never swam a day in my life, actually, but if Rick can do it, I can too. So I didn't know how to swim, even living on the Great Lakes, actually. So what I do, I enrolled at our local YMCA, actually, and sure enough, as I went to the pool, actually, I jumped in, and I just sank to the bottom, actually, and I looked over, and all these 5- and 6-year-old girls were swimming back and forth, and the swim instructor came over to me, and she said, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm trying to swim. She said, well, you're not going to swim that way. And she said, what do you want to do with your swimming? And I said, I want to do an Ironman competition. She said, well, you're not going to do it that way. And she said, I'll teach you how to swim. And so you want to talk about a humbling experience with an old man swimming with 5- and 6-year-old girls. But the greatest thing was, after 4 months, I was able to swim 4-kilometer distance. And I went to Lake Placid, New York, and lined up in 2012 with thousands of other competitors. And I went into that lake. It's called Mirror Lake, actually, and I thought, wow. They played the song from YouTube called Beautiful Day. And let me tell you, God created a beautiful day. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And let me tell you, it was great. But it turned into a disaster as that cannon went off, actually, and I've got 3,000 runners kicking me and punching me, and we're all swimming together, and I wasn't expecting that, actually. I thought I was going to drown. But over that course, I came out of the water, and was the greatest thing. And then the bike ride through the mountains. We don't have mountains here in Sarnia, Ontario, but Lake Placid they do, where the Olympics was held in 1980. And after doing the bike, next came the run, and it was hot. And people were giving up. And I thought, nope, I want to get 26 miles to go. I saw Rick in my mind and said, yes, you can. And then as I crossed that finishing line, my arms way up in the air. Yes, you can. I just completed my first Ironman in a time of, 3 hours. There's 13 hours, 14 minutes, and a few seconds in there. And I thought, wow, life is great. And then 2013 came, and we can save that for another time too as well. Actually, looking at, I can continue talking about this wonderful experience. But in 2013, Dick and Rick said, hey, Wes, we want you to come back as part of Team Hoyt. It was the greatest day of my life. You talk about great days in your life, actually, because the city of Boston had erected a statue of both Dick and Rick Hoyt. It was an amazing time. And where did they place that statue? On the starting line of the Boston Marathon. And we gathered with hundreds of other dignitaries as we unveiled the statue. And as a Canadian, a no-name Canadian, what was I doing there? Well, I was living my dream. And this is an added star I was able to pick up. And they unveiled the statue. And I lined up, and it was the greatest. It was a beautiful day, a beautiful running day. It was over 12 degrees, sun was shining, and the Hoyt statue was just unveiled. And we started running together. And as I crossed that finishing line, I looked up, and my family were sitting in the bleacher seats. I mean, they were sitting right next to the governor of Massachusetts, actually. And the great thing is, as I looked over, I'm waving and smiling, and it wasn't just a few minutes later when that beautiful day turned into a horror of horrors as those two bombs went off. You see, in Boston, it's Patriots Day. And I thought, obviously it's got to be fireworks going off. And as you could hear the sirens and the crying and the anguish and the pain, and you could smell, that quickly turned into disaster, turned into death. And as I looked at the finishing line, and it was a horrible sight. And as I looked at the Hoyts, you see, they were stopped at mile 25. The race was over then. And immediately the security was wonderful, and the police and the FBI, and you see, they were all there, actually. The Army was there, putting people in the buildings. We were able to get into a hotel lobby. And I saw it. I saw it again, a father and his son walking in. And here, Dick Hoyt had picked up his son at mile 25 and carried him in to the hotel to safety. And I thought, wow, they're doing life and they're doing together. And God said, that's not the end of the story for you, because I'm going to use you more. And I thought, wow, could life get any better? But with the bombings, it turned into a beautiful time thereafter, what God was able to do, turning death into life. And everything has a season, and Ecclesiastes chapter 3 tells us that, because God was going to birth something new. Something called Team Hoyt Canada arrived, as you alluded, a first athletic ride-along program for individuals like Rick Hoyt in Ontario, Canada. It was awesome. And I am so excited that, as the opportunity has come, we now have hundreds and hundreds of individuals with disabilities, developmental, physical, and they are living life together, living their dreams, because so often they're just on the sidelines, cheering. But today they're in the race, and you should see the smiles and the laughter and the tears of the people. And it's the greatest day of my life, as I get to be an opportunity just to be the legs, because they're the hearts. These individuals sitting in the chair who are doing life together. So I just want to share with your listeners that, whatever the circumstance you're in, God can turn it around for you. That you are special, that yes, you can do anything you want to do. I'm reminded what Paul said, all things are possible through Christ who strengthens you. So as I look at the things that have gone in my life, God's looking back at you and saying, yes, you can, on your journey, that all things are possible through Christ. I'm going to strengthen you to do it, to start living that dream. And along that way, make a difference. because life is short. And when you take your eyes off yourself and you look around, wow, the blessing is going to be yours, and God's going to bless you beyond your imagination thereafter. But certainly, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I can continue talking, as you've just seen. I had diarrhea of the mouth, and I haven't even got to the book part yet, but writing the book. But certainly, that came along thereafter, and you've just got a snapshot there in that short time of what's happened in my life in a very, very short few years, actually. And if you ever get that opportunity to read the book Destined to Run, there's a lot more in there, actually, that God has certainly used. And I love the opportunity, if that so be, actually continue talking about what God has done, and that, yeah, you do. God's giving you a dream, and to live that dream, take that first step, because anything is possible. And I want to thank you, Julie, for your time here too, as well. And as you say, I can continue talking all day long. I just encourage your listeners. So
you are amazing. You know, it is what you've accomplished in the time that you have is mind blowing. And I was telling you this off screen. I've actually volunteered and just passing out water at those Ironmans, and working in the medical tent and anesthesia school in Panama City. And I got tired from just passing out water, just to see these athletes and their commitment. And it's absolutely amazing what you have done. 80 pounds. You've completely turned your life around. And being inspired with the video that the Hoyts provided, and having God speak to you through that. And now you are serving, and it's amazing. It's really amazing. And the book is great. There's so many miracles. I hope that people check it out. We'll definitely list the website for that. And I believe it was, you said, the book is on Amazon, and then destinedtorun.net is the website. And I am going to attach the video that you saw in church that day. I will try to add it in. I'm not sure that I can, but I will attach it at the very least. And I really highly recommend that you check that out. So thank you so much for this inspirational word that's very needed right now. Just perfectly timed. And I don't know if you would you like to pray as we exit?
Sure. Wonderful. Thank you for asking, actually. Yeah, let's pray together. Oh, Heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity just to come and share your story. And Lord, I have no idea who's going to be listening to this. But Lord, may they not see me, but they may hear you through this. I'm reminded of David as he looked around the land and saw the giants. There are giants in our lands too, Lord. You know that. And as David went and approached the giant, he said, "The Lord is my strength." And Lord, that same resounding prayer is ours too, as well, as we look to you. May we not look around and listen to the voices that are around us, telling us otherwise, and these naysayers all around. But Lord, may we listen to your small, still voice and say, "You are my child. You're special to me, and I have a plan for you. I have a future for you," says the Lord in Jeremiah 29:11. And Lord, that I do know that all things are possible through Christ who strengthens me. So Father, today I just pray for each listener that they may be encouraged, that your presence surrounds them, to encourage them to take that first step. And Lord, I do know that once you take that first step, like Abraham took there, actually, to go into an unknown land, you bless them, and you bless them mightily for taking it. And as we look through Scripture, Lord, there are many individuals who were afraid and scared, but they went on to do some great things through your power. So, Lord, I'm asking for a special anointment upon each one that may hear or see, or in the future too as well, that your power and your strength will be revealed to them, that yes, you are special, and that you can do anything that you want. And Father, on top of that, you tell us to make that difference as we do life, and we do it together. We do it together as a community. So, Lord, I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for this podcast. I pray for a special blessing upon Julie and her family, and continue to share that word of encouragement around. So, Lord, this is your day, and we do rejoice in this time together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. And hopefully you're going to be out with all those races. They're going to be back soon. And all things.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, COVID will pass. So look forward to seeing.
This too shall pass. It's not in the Bible, but anyways, I'll put it in the Harding Bible.
Yes. Yes. So Yes, thank you so much. And if you're listening and you have an inspirational miracle or testimony that you would like to share with us, please reach out to me at everydaymiraclespodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening today, and God bless.